So as a proud papa, I was looking through a stack of photographs lately and saw some photos of our son Mateo at age 3 with this Easter basket and that glow of just that 3-year-old, this egg is good, and look, this one's good. It was just so wonderful with those sitting there with those memories. And a little further down in the stack, there was a picture of him also an Easter, maybe 8 or 9 years old with some cousins. And then it was more like, I'm going to get this egg, I'm going to get that egg, I'm going to get this egg in their mind. I got a lot of eggs. And then, as I remember last year, we kind of had to talk him into doing Easter with us. It was like, don't forget the eggs, just give me the chocolate bunny. And this year, he's spending the night at a friend's house. Didn't want anything to do with eggs. Dying eggs, ooh, that stinky, vinegary smell, Forget the chocolate bunny. I'm 14 now, I'm in high school. That's the way it should be, an evolution of his understanding of what Easter means in his life and Easter eggs. It's a rough analogy, it's a very rough analogy, I grant you. But at some level, each of us and our larger culture is being asked to ascertain where we are with the Easter story and the whole belief in what Easter eggs mean and what does the Christ story mean at a time when I think the latest polls are showing that 75 to 80% of Americans say they're Christians, with about 14% saying they're overtly non-religious or non-spiritual. They're atheists or just don't want to think about that side of themselves. And about 5% are other, Buddhist, Jews, Muslims. And of the 75-80% who are Christians, approximately half still believe the central story of the Christ birth, death, and resurrection. The other half are Christians, but they don't really know what to do with that virgin birth thing or the dying on the cross, much less the rising on Easter. And so each one of us is left to understand what exactly does that story mean in our lives. And I'm not here to tell you what it should mean in your life. I'm here to talk a little bit about what it means in my life and in my understanding. And my understanding is that there is an abiding need in us humans to believe that there's something new possible. That at every point in our lives there is the possibility of new life emerging in us. Whether that is as the Christ or that is just as Rudi having a new opportunity to choose his diet and his relationship to money or whatever. We all have this deep need at some level to understand that newness is possible in the face of death. And I know that it's no accident that the earliest artifacts, the earliest art found on the planet so far dates back 25 to 30,000 years and are little clay figurines of the fertility goddess. The very first pieces of art were about celebrating this mystery of life, celebrating new birth. The very oldest paintings found in caves are about the spiritual self and animals dying and people dying, and out of them pop these shamanistic, spiritual, some kind of animal figurines. On the cave paintings and the earliest clay sculptures, there's the very first thing that the human artist dealt with was this question of life and death and where does new life come from, and honoring the great mystery of it all. And I don't believe that need is any less strong in the postmodernist world we live in today. The fact that we don't know what to do with the central Christ story of dying and being reborn as a culture in the postmodernist, post-scientific revolution era. What do we do with the idea of the fact of the story That one man chose to die willingly, knowing that he couldn't really die, that new life was waiting to be born in him. It's important for me to remember that this is not the first time that that story has been reinterpreted. That the story of the central spiritual figure being born of a virgin, then dying willingly and being reborn after 3 days of death, is a story that predated the birth of Jesus the Christ by 2,000 years. That the story of Mithra, the sun god of the Persians, which was the dominant religion of what we now call the Holy Land. The dominant religion at the time of the Jews was not Judaism, except for the Jews. The Bible we read has all about the Jews because it was written by the Jews, about the Jews and their story, which is not in any way to diminish the power of that story. It's just a story that was written by the Jews, which then and there, as now, were a minority religion in the land in which they lived and worshiped. The majority religion at that time was the religion of Mithra, the sun god, the Persian sun god, who was born of a virgin, died, and was resurrected in 3 days' time. Is the Christ story a sociologically superimposed story that grew out of the dominant myth at the time? Many scholars would say yes. Many more people would adamantly say, don't mess with my Jesus story. Both of which are perfectly valid approaches. In the postmodern, post-scientific era in which we live, you get to make up your own mind about what you believe about life and death and the dominant God of your heart. Me, myself, I was raised a Christian in a very mainstream Protestant church, and for me, the Christ is very much a living, breathing presence. I am a born-again Christian. I was born again this morning. I was born again yesterday morning. I would hope to be born again tomorrow morning. In the renewed awareness of the Christ in me, that which is divine made manifest in the human form. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 16 of the New Testament, Jesus, having taught and done all the things he did for 2 years, was getting ready to go into Jerusalem, was having one of his later confabs with his disciples and said, who do you say that I am? The Romans say one thing, the Sadducees say another thing, the Pharisees say another thing. He turned to his disciples, and who do you say I am? And Peter answered, you are the Christ. You are Jesus the Christ. And I'm here this morning because as I look at you, I see Mark the Christ, and I see Susan the Christ, and I see Casey the Christ. And I don't know what Mark and Susan and Casey see when they look in the mirror. They've got their own stuff to deal with. But I choose to see the Christ made manifest, the bright light in each one of them. I choose to remember that about myself as well, but it's harder to remember about Rudi the Christ. It's real easy to forget. And think about Rudi the jerk who forgot again to bring the other microphone, who forgot again. Rudi the Christ, who again ate more chocolate yesterday than he intended to. That was Rudi the Harst. Or in my angrier moments, it's Rudolph the Harst. But in my better moments, I remember Rudi the Christ, who is infinite, who is unlimited, who faces death willingly, knowing that it's coming. And that's one of the great gifts and also one of the great downfalls of our time, is that we've been given in many ways the ability to prolong life, to push back the moment of death time and time again. My father should have been dead 4 times by now. Each time he's gotten taken to the hospital, had a pacemaker put in. The second time had a pacemaker adjusted. The third time he recovered from pneumonia when he shouldn't at age 90. Because the miracle of modern science has allowed him to live 20 years longer than he might have otherwise. But it also has created in my brothers and myself the unrealistic expectation that the next time he has a heart problem, we can fix it again. Rather than acknowledge that at age 90, we should be grateful for every single time we hug him, because death is coming for him. And it's coming for me. And this tendency our culture has to avoid looking at death is precisely the gift of the Easter story for me. Because the other side of the Easter story, of course, is what? The Good Friday story. The story of willingly facing into the darkness of the cave, the pain of the crucifixion, and the mystery of death, and the darkness, and the not knowingness. Having full faith that something new can emerge. And that's the miracle of the Easter story. That we can die literally, willingly to that part of Rudi the Harst that no longer serves him. And face into the Rudi the Christ that always serves him, always brings the hope of glory, always brings the story of new life, always brings the promise that there is a tomorrow. And I don't know what shape that's going to take. Rudi the Harst wants to know what shape that's going to take. Rudi the Christ knows, and now it's a new moment. And now it's a new moment. And now it's a new moment to choose again. The choice. I'm going to read this poem again. It was a wonderful poem. I don't know if you heard it the first time. The choice. Is it faith or fear that rises to the fore? Affirmation or negation at the very core and center of the self? Central question. Is it faith or fear that rises to the fore? Affirmation or negation at the very core and center of the self? Will it be light or dark within the heart today? The icy grip of fear that knots and sours, leaving me to cower in the shadows. There is another way. I know it as surely as I know the scent of spring. The choice of faith invites, invokes, calls forth from all creation both the blessing and the lesson of the day. Whether faith or fear, the choice is mine alone, each moment choosing, stepping through the door, trusting that the path beyond will surely lead me home. The poet has a wonderful poem from her perspective, and that's her perspective. But the choice is the same for each one of us. Do we turn and face the light or the dark? Can we embrace them both, the light and the dark, and still choose to face the light? Can we face into that inevitable sense of loss and grief, of the innocence of the child, of the passing of the parent, of the widening of the waistline? Can we face those inevitable losses and still choose faith? That's the question that the Christ asks me on Easter morning. I don't know what it's asking you. But I invite you to consider the possibility that there is something new being asked to be born in you. That however old you are, whatever past was past, in this moment, this morning, there's something new that wants to be honored and nurtured and allowed to grow. What is it? I don't know, but I believe from the very core of my being that the Christ of Rick and the Christ of Ellen and the Christ of Lucian Christ that Betty knows and is ready and willing to jump out of the dark and dance into the light with you as you take that step forward, whatever that step is for you on this most blessed of days, which is today and now. And now. And now. You have the opportunity to make that choice again. At least that's my choice, but I'm sticking to it.